Today we are diving into the worst language learning apps and breaking down exactly why they fail to deliver on their promises. Using a clear scoring system, we'll evaluate them across different criteria and highlight where they fall short. So let's get started. This video was eagerly requested by you guys after the last video I made about the best language learning apps, where you asked to also review the worst ones. Now, worst is a strong word here, and I would use it with caution, but it is simply to indicate that those apps failed to deliver a well-rounded language learning experience. To evaluate them, I'll be using the same 4 criteria from our previous video, but for those who missed it or need a refresher, here's a quick rundown. The first criteria is language proficiency and accuracy. Does the app manage to teach accurate grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation? Then we have content variety. How many different topics, situations, or skills does the app cover? Then we have user experience. Is the app engaging and easy to use and provides an environment that you will keep wanting to go back to? And finally, we have learning methodology. How does the app teach the language? Does it rely on memorization, gamification? Does it employ science-backed teaching techniques? I gave each of the apps a score out of 10 for each of these criteria. One disclaimer I would give is that this evaluation is highly subjective and based on my own testing. Using 3 languages I have at least a decent level of proficiency in, which are English, German, and Arabic. So take it with as many grains of salt as you can handle. But it should at least give you some idea and make you aware of the shortcomings of these apps, and then you can decide for yourself whether they work for you or not. No one language learning app will teach you the language on its own. You will still need real-world practice in a sophisticated setting. But still, apps are a great learning supplement, especially when you are just getting started. And to act as such, they need to offer substantial benefits that justify your time investment. Let's start off with Duolingo. Duolingo is one of the most popular language learning apps, known for its gamified approach and colorful interface. It offers bite-sized lessons across dozens of languages and uses translation exercises and multiple choice questions to teach vocabulary and grammar. Now, Duolingo's biggest issue is a glaring one, and it cannot be understated, and lies mainly in its lack of depth and at the same time deeply flawed language proficiency and accuracy, especially if you are learning a language other than English. But in particular when it comes to more complicated languages like Arabic, it doesn't get neither the grammar nor the pronunciation right, and it seems to be teaching a weird mixture of modern standard Arabic and dialects. The app's voice recognition is quite basic, and many of the translations feel robotic and unnatural. This is especially problematic for learners of languages where nuances and grammatical structures are essential for fluency, not to mention the complete lack of focus on conversational skills. And when it comes to content variety, while Duolingo offers a wide range of topics, the content still often feels repetitive and lacks depth. Cultural nuances and context are frequently ignored, leaving you with a shallow understanding of how the language works in a real-world situation. Now, the app has a gamified approach which can be quite engaging, but it can sometimes over-prioritize entertainment over effective learning. So you may focus on earning streaks and points as opposed to actually mastering the language. It prioritizes screen time above all, and in case you didn't know, apps often try to milk as much screen time from users as possible because they can use that metric to attract investors. So it's not really trying to work in your favor. Now, as for the learning methodology, Duolingo relies heavily on translation exercises and multiple choice questions, which don't effectively teach grammar or proper sentence structure. All of that being said, I would rate it 5 out of 10 for language proficiency and accuracy. For content variety, I would give it 6.5 out of 10. For user experience, it's fun and engaging to use, so it gets 9 out of 10. And for learning methodology, it's quite ineffective in my opinion, so I would give it 4.5 out of 10. So that is 25 total points out of 40. Next, let's look at Pimsleur. Pimsleur is an audio-based language learning app designed to teach conversational skills through active listening and repetition. It's good for learners who want to improve their listening and speaking skills without relying heavily on visuals. Basically, you are presented with audio lessons and asked to repeat what you hear. It's good for learning basic conversations, but it's quite limited in its content variety and completely lacks any grammar instruction. And it's slow, like incredibly slow. But let's look at it a bit more in detail. When it comes to language proficiency and accuracy, Pimsleur does relatively well in teaching pronunciation and basic conversational phrases. I still find that the pronunciation and grammar, especially in Arabic, not entirely accurate. It completely separates grammar practice from speaking, and I personally think you cannot really separate grammar from speaking, especially with complex languages like Arabic. So as a result of this app might be a bit more suited for beginners. The other point is that Pimsleur's content is heavily focused on audio-based learning, which also leaves significant gaps in cultural understanding. The lessons can feel very repetitive, and there is very little room for exploration outside the set limited curriculum, which hasn't been updated for I don't know how many tens of years, honestly. And it is again slow, like very, very slow.
Digen. Schul. Schul. Schuldigen. Schuldigen.
It repeats the same instruction slowly several times, and honestly, I just get bored within the first 30 seconds and give up. As for the user experience, while the app is user-friendly and easy to use, it still feels a bit outdated, especially when compared to more interactive and visually engaging apps. There aren't really any dynamic features to speak of, which can encourage a more immersive learning experience. And when it comes to the learning methodology, well, it is heavily outdated. Again, it's good for basic conversations, but it relies heavily on repetition and can feel very monotonous, which means that it's hard to keep engagement over time. With all that being said, I would give it 7.5 for language proficiency and accuracy, 6 out of 10 for content variety, user experience, 7 out of 10, and learning methodology, probably 6 out of 10. Next up, we have Drops. Drops is a visually engaging app focused on vocabulary acquisition through quick gamified sessions. It uses visually appealing graphics and a swipe-based interface to make learning feel like a game. However, it has many issues. First, when it comes to language proficiency and accuracy, Drops emphasizes vocabulary acquisition but offers little to no pronunciation and grammar guidance. It pretty much presents you with isolated words and expects you to memorize them without understanding how to construct meaningful sentences or use words in a context. And I also find the pronunciation in languages other than English more than a little off, to be honest. As for content variety, although the app offers a wide range of vocabulary topics over food, traveling, emotions, it still remains very much surface level. Again, you don't get to learn sentence structure or grammar or develop your conversational skills. And its learning methodology relies heavily on flashcard style vocabulary acquisition, which is actually not the best method to acquire vocabulary. As I have talked about before in other videos, the best way to learn new words is by learning them in context. If you just memorize them, you will forget them and you won't really know how to use them in real life situations. So basically, it's a vocabulary app disguised as a language learning platform. It's great for picking up individual words quickly for beginners, but doesn't really go much deeper beyond that. So I would give it 6 out of 10 for language proficiency and accuracy, 5.5 out of 10 for content variety, and user experience, it's quite well designed and smooth, so I would give it 8.5 out of 10. And for learning methodology, it's quite bad, so I would give it 3 out of 10. For the next one, let's switch gears a little bit and go for an AI-powered speech practice app, which is Speak. This app is supposed to help you improve your speaking skills by letting you practice with AI chatbots on a wide range of subjects, currently only in English and Spanish. But where do I even start with my frustrations with this app? For starters, I was asked to choose a subscription plan without even being offered a sample of what I am signing up for. Once I did, I was then asked to upgrade my subscription. Now keep in mind all these promotions are happening while I still don't have even the smallest glimpse into what exactly it is that I'm buying. Once I was able to click all that away and finally get to the actual speaking practice, I was immediately heavily disappointed. For one, the voices sounded a lot more robotic than what you would find with other speaking practice apps like Langua or TalkPal. But you can choose to ignore this if there were other good features that compensate for this. But there weren't. Although I intentionally made mistakes in my pronunciation and grammar, for the pronunciation part, it did not even catch that there was anything wrong.
Ich bin noch nie einen Marathon gelaufen.
I have never running marathon. Let alone correct me on it. As for the grammar, half of the time it kind of transcribed my faulty grammar into correct sentences and indicated that it is correct with a check mark, and proceeded with the conversation. The other half, it was kind enough to indicate a star next to my line. Then if I click on the star, as in actively go out of my way and click on the star, then it makes a suggestion on better grammar or sentence structure. So in my experience, at least at this point in time, the app fails to deliver on the very basic premise that it claims to address. But then again, I have to admit, I did not have much patience to play around with it much, so I might have missed on the good stuff, and you guys could let me know if there's actually more to it than that. So how would I rate it? I would give it for language proficiency and accuracy. Well, that's a tough one considering that it did not catch my mistakes sometimes, so maybe an 8 out of 10. As for content variety, I found the content rather limited. It's all in the context of having conversations with AI on different subjects with no unique cultural insights or different modes of conversation that stimulate thinking, like debates. So I would give it maybe 6 out of 10 because there was a wide range of subjects you could talk about. User experience, it's quite basic. I would give it 6 out of 10. And for the learning methodology, the app doesn't actively teach sentence structure or grammar, and I would give it personally a 4 out of 10. Now, there are obviously many more apps with shortcomings, but I tried to focus on some of the more popular ones that people might choose to default to out of convenience. So this list is not meant by any means to be exhaustive. And if you missed the video that I made on some of the better language learning apps, then you can check it out right here.